In the quiet village of Umuala, people spoke in hushed tones about one man, Chief Dyke. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a voice that could silence a storm, he was both feared and respected. But behind his wealth and charm hid a chilling truth. He had married 5 wives. All 5 had died mysteriously while pregnant. Their bodies were never buried, never honored. Instead, they were locked in his private compound, hidden away like dark secrets. The elders warned him, the earth must swallow the dead or their spirits will roam. But Dyke laughed it off. What's buried is forgotten. Let them stay where I can remember them. That statement alone made every villager shiver. Just when the whispers were dying down, Dyke shocked everyone again. He brought home a 6th wife, Nena, a quiet beauty from a distant village. She wore innocence like a crown and smiled like someone who didn't know she was walking into a lion's den. The villagers watched in silence as her feet stepped on a path no woman had returned from. Nena was different though. Unlike the others, she was curious. She asked questions. Where are the other wives? She once whispered to an old maid. The maid only looked away and trembled. From the very first night, Nena felt it. Eyes watching her, whispers at her window, cold air brushing her neck, even with all doors locked. Dyke said nothing. He came and went like a ghost himself. One evening, as she wandered near the locked section of the compound, she saw something that froze her soul. A pale face at the window, eyes hollow, skin gray. It vanished in a blink. When she screamed and told Dyke, he simply said, "Don't wander there again." But that night, Nena didn't sleep. She couldn't. Something wasn't right, and she could feel it breathing behind the walls. Nena tried to act normal. She smiled when Dyke looked at her, cooked his favorite meals, and laughed when needed. But inside, her heart was restless. The face she saw haunted her. Every night, she heard faint crying, like a woman in pain, drifting from behind the locked doors. One day, she gathered the courage to ask Dyke again. Why is that section always locked? Dyke's face darkened. Because some doors must never be opened. Then he stood up and walked away, leaving her with more questions than answers. The warning didn't stop her. It only made her more determined. She had to find out what Dyke was hiding. One night, Nena pretended to sleep. She wrapped herself in a wrapper and lay quietly listening. Sometime after midnight, she heard the wooden floor creak. Dyke was moving. Carefully, silently, she tiptoed behind him, staying in the shadows. He held a lantern and headed toward the locked part of the compound. When he reached the door, he pulled out an iron key hidden in his waistband. The door opened with a long creak. Nena's heart pounded. As he stepped inside, she caught a glimpse. White cloths, still and stiff, lined up like sleeping bodies. She covered her mouth to muffle the scream. That night, Nena didn't sleep. She sat by the window, shivering. Around 3 a.m., a cold wind swept through the room, even though all windows were shut. Then a voice, soft but firm. "He must bury us, or you will join us." Nena spun around. No one was there, but she knew what she heard. The spirits were real. They weren't at peace, and now they had spoken to her. The next morning, her face was pale. Dyke noticed. "You look weak," he said. She only nodded. Deep down, she knew if she didn't act fast, she would become the 7th. Nena couldn't live in silence anymore. She left the compound early one morning, telling Dyke she was going to fetch herbs. But instead, she made her way to the edge of the village, to the shrine of the old priestess, Mama Udoka. The old woman's eyes were cloudy with age, yet sharp with her knowledge. Before Nena could speak, Mama Udoka said, "The dead do not rest where there is no dust to cover their bones." Nena fell to her knees. "Help me. They speak to me. They cry." The priestess sighed. "Your husband has broken the laws of nature, and now nature will break him. But first, you must be brave." She handed Nena a small gourd. "Pour this where he keeps them, then run." That night, when Dyke left the house to meet with the elders, Nena made her move. Her hands shook as she unlocked the forbidden door. The air inside was thick and heavy, like breathing in smoke. She opened the gourd. A strong wind whooshed out and circled the room. The white cloths covering the bodies began to rise, as if something under them was waking up. Nena dropped the gourd and ran, heart beating wildly, tears in her eyes. Behind her, she heard it, wailing, loud, long, and full of pain. The spirits had been awakened. When Dyke returned, the compound felt different. The air was cold, the lamps kept going out, and the birds that usually chirped were silent. He rushed to the locked door and found it wide open. Inside, the bodies were gone. The floor was smeared with red clay handprints leading back to the house. In panic, he ran to Nena's room. She wasn't there, but her wrapper lay on the floor, soaked, not with water, with tears. That night, the man who had no fear finally trembled. The spirits he kept had been set free, and now they were coming for him. Chief Dyke tried to convince himself it was a dream, but the signs were too real. Doors slammed on their own. Footsteps echoed at midnight. The walls began to weep. Yes, weep. A slow trickle of water seeped through the clay, leaving behind brown stains like dried blood. He called for native doctors. They shook their heads and left with trembling hands. "This is not the work of man," one whispered before running off. Dyke stood alone in the compound, now cold and lifeless. Even the birds refused to perch on the roof. Something had shifted, and it was watching him. Nena had run deep into the forest, barefoot and scared, but guided by the whispers of the dead. They led her to an abandoned shrine near a broken Iroko tree. There she fell and wept. "I didn't mean to disturb them," she cried. Then, from the darkness, they appeared, 5 shadows, glowing faintly, their bellies full with unborn life. "You freed us," one said, "but our bones are thirsty for dust. Help us rest, and you will live. Run, and you'll join us." Nena nodded, eyes wide. She had touched a curse older than herself, and now she carried the burden of making it right. Back in the village, thunder cracked without a rain. Children cried in their sleep. Elders threw cowries and saw only death. Dyke wandered the halls of his compound, calling names he had once forgotten: Chinyere, Ada, Ifeoma, Ngozi, Amaka, his wives. No one answered. Instead, they whispered back through mirrors, from under his bed, inside his football. "You kept us like trophies," one hissed. "Now where our pain?" That night, he woke to find red footprints circling his bed. His shadow had vanished. The mighty chief of Umwala was no longer alone in his own skin. Something had entered him. The once bustling compound of Chief Dyke had grown silent. No more music, no more laughter. Servants abandoned the place one by one, claiming they saw women walking at night with swollen bellies and empty eyes. Even the goats and chickens refused to enter the yard. Word spread across Umwala. Dyke has called death, and death has answered. The elders gathered to discuss. One said he has offended the land. Another said he has held the wombs of women hostage in life and death, but none dared confront him. Fear clung to every tongue. Meanwhile, Dyke sat alone, gaunt, trembling. talking to shadows. In the heart of the forest, Nana nursed her fear like fire. But the voices grew louder. The spirits didn't want revenge, they wanted rest. She understood now. No ritual could fix what Dyke had done. Only burial, proper burial. So she returned to the village, clothes torn, face strong. The villagers gasped. She came back? They whispered. Some believed she was a spirit herself, but she didn't flinch. She walked straight to the elders and said, I know what must be done. They listened as she spoke, and when she finished, even the wind bowed. The next morning, 6 young men arrived at Dyke's compound with shovels, led by the village priest and the elders. Dyke screamed at them, eyes wild. Leave my wives alone. They are mine. But his voice cracked like broken wood. He could barely stand. The priest ignored him and began chanting. The digging started. As the soil broke open behind the forbidden door, the ground itself trembled. One by one, the bodies were gently lifted, each one still dressed in wedding cloth. The village women wept. Even the sky turned gray. The moment the last body was laid on a mat for burial, a strange peace fell over the land. On the day of the burial, the entire village gathered. No drumming, no singing, just silence. The 6 coffins were made from palm wood, each one marked with the names of the women, names remembered through whispers, stories, and sorrow. Nena walked behind them, head bowed, holding a calabash of kola nuts as tradition demanded. The priest poured libations and spoke in an ancient tongue. Let the earth welcome her daughters. Let the wombs of pain be laid to rest. As the first coffin was lowered, the wind sighed. And when the last one touched soil, the earth stopped shaking. The spirits were watching. From a distance, Chief Dyke watched. He was no longer the powerful man the village once feared. His skin had grown pale, his voice weak, his eyes hollow. As each coffin disappeared into the ground, he wailed, They were mine, mine! He dropped to his knees, hounding the earth with his fists. But no one came to help him. No one even looked at him. The same man who once ruled the village with pride now sat in the mud, begging the wind for forgiveness. But the wind offered nothing. His power had died with the women he refused to honor. After the burial, Nena knelt by the graves and whispered a prayer. May you rest now. May no woman suffer your fate again. She placed a white cloth over each mound and stood. The elders came to her. One said, You have done what no one dared. Another said, You've cleansed the land. But Nena only nodded. Her heart was still heavy, but she felt the chains loosening. That night, for the first time in months, she slept without dreams. The spirits were finally quiet. The night, once full of cries, now held only the soft hum of peace. Days after the burial, the elders summoned Chief Dyke to the village square. He arrived barefoot, hunched, his once proud wrapper dragging in the dust. The people surrounded him, silent but watching. Elder Okonkwo stepped forward. You disrespected life and insulted death. You treated women like things, not daughters of this land. Another elder added, You let pride blind your soul. But the gods do not sleep. Dyke, weak and broken, fell to his knees. I was afraid to be seen as cursed, the crowd murmured. But the elders had already decided. Dyke would live, but not as chief. He was stripped of his title. His throne was gone. Even after the burial, Dyke's compound remained abandoned. Grass grew through the floors. Snakes made homes in his halls. At night, villagers claimed they still heard crying from the walls. The curse had lifted, but the stain remained. Dyke, now banished, was made to live in a hut by the river, far from the village. There he sat every day, staring into the water, speaking to the spirits no one else could see. Children were told not to go near him. That is the man disrespect the womb. Mothers warned, and so he remained, forgotten but not forgiven. As Dyke faded into shadows, Nena stepped into light. She was given a new hut by the elders. Women came to her for advice. Men lowered their heads in respect. She had become a voice for the voiceless. But Nena remained humble. She planted flowers by the graves of the wives and visited often. They are the reason I'm strong, she'd say. Her pain had shaped her but not destroyed her. And in the evenings, children would gather to hear her stories, tales of courage, truth, and warnings. Honor the dead, she'd whisper, for they are never truly gone. For many moons, the village had suffered dry winds and cracked soil. But days after Nena's final visit to the graves, clouds began to gather. The first drops of rain fell softly, then grew into a generous storm. The people danced under the sky, thanking the spirits, the gods, and the girl who had restored balance. Peace has returned, woman, they said. The trees looked greener, the streams flowed louder, even the animals came back. But deep within the hearts of the elders, they knew it was not just rain, it was forgiveness. The land had accepted their repentance. Alone by the river, Chief Dyke watched the sky darken. His hair was gray, his legs weak, but his heart heavier than ever. That night, he lit a fire and stared into it for hours. Some say he spoke to the flames, others say he walked into the river, never to be seen again. No body was found, no ceremony was held. The village didn't mourn him. They just whispered his name with caution. His story became a warning, one told to young boys and chiefs to be. To dishonor the womb, they said, is to curse your soul. Years passed. Nena grew older, but her fire never faded. She became a teacher, a healer, a storyteller. Children sat around her with wide eyes as she spoke, not with fear, but with purpose. What you refuse to bury, she'd say, will return to bury you. And the children would nod, their hearts learning what words could not always explain. The graves of the women remained sacred, flowers blooming every season. And though the wind still whistled through the village trees, it no longer cried. It whispered, it taught, and it remembered.